thanking Chris Smith for holding this hearing at exactly the right time, because now is the time we have got to get the attention of the international community on these human rights abuses. And so, yes, in a few weeks, the President of the United States is going to be traveling to Vietnam. And while maintaining peace in the South China Sea and improving trade ties is an important shared goal, the administration must carefully take into account Vietnam's human rights abuses as this relationship develops. And that is the conundrum, because this has not gotten better. I've met with the Venerable Thich Quang Do, as well as one of the other religious leaders in Vietnam when they were under house arrest years ago. I heard about the circumstances. I check in with human rights NGOs, and as we all know, this situation is not improving. Human rights have got to be at the very top of the President's agenda. No matter how the administration frames our relationship, the reality, as we all know, is that Vietnam remains a one-party communist state with significant human rights abuses. And as we will hear today from the wife of an imprisoned human rights lawyer and activist, and I want to thank Chris Smith for his efforts here to elevate this issue. But as we'll hear, Nguyen Van Dai, she'll share with us the reality that Vietnam has a long, long way to go. In December, Nguyen Van Dai was badly beaten by government, well, I guess we should call them thugs, because they beat her and taken into custody. And since that time, took her husband into custody. And since that time, he's been denied access to his lawyer and even his family. He sits in solitary confinement. His condition is unknown, and Ms. Vu is rightly concerned. Sadly, Nguyen Van Dai's treatment is far from an isolated incident. According to Human Rights Watch, police still frequently, Human Rights Watch says they frequently torture suspects to elicit confessions and sometimes use excessive force in responding to protests over evictions, land confiscation, because land grabbing is one of the things the party does, and other social issues. So last year, more than 40 bloggers and rights activists were beaten by plainclothes government agents. Not surprisingly, not one of these thugs who did the beating was held responsible. Vietnam's penal code criminalizes criticism of the government and abuse of democratic freedoms, while other laws restrict freedom of religion and the media. Bloggers like, An Ba Sam and Nguyen Minh Tai Tu Y and Nguyen Ngoc Gaye remain in prison for their advocacy of human rights, imprisoned for what the state or what the Communist Party calls abusing the rights to freedom of democracy. Not surprisingly, Vietnam now ranks in the world 175th out of 180 countries for press freedom. Now that means Vietnam is behind Cuba. It's worse than Saudi Arabia. It's worse than Iran. That's why we're here at this hearing. Freedom of religion is a significant concern in Vietnam as the government continues to restrict religious practice through registration requirements, through harassment, through surveillance. Branches of the Cao Dai and Wo Hao Buddhist Church and independent Catholics and Protestants are banned. They face government harassment for their peaceful religious practice. The Venerable Thich Quang Do, who both Chairman Smith and I have met with, has remained under house arrest since 1998 for his religious beliefs. If the United States and Vietnam are to build a stronger relationship, the Vietnamese government must honor the basic human rights of the Vietnamese people with respect to freedom of speech, religion, assembly. And that's the message the President of the United States needs to send during his upcoming visit. I wrote to the President last week asking that he carry exactly that message. We are all watching. The President's trip cannot be a replay of his trip to Havana. We have to have these issues addressed. And, Mr. Chairman, thank you again for calling this important and timely hearing.
Chairman Royce, thank you for your very eloquent